Well, selamat pagi and terima kasih. It's Padin, friends of UGM, fellow speakers. It's wonderful to be back at UGM, the great Indonesian university. Though I have to say, when I go to ITB and UI, I also say the great Indonesian university. But certainly you three pirouette around each other very, very successfully. And I congratulate you on taking as your theme at your 7th Economics and Business Forum the creative industries, because I think, I'm the wrong way around. I think a few years ago, some of the faculty might have felt that the creative economy is not a sufficient enough important sector to be the sole subject for an economics and business forum like this. Because what we have seen is, in Indonesia, in just a very few years, the creative economy, alongside the manufacturing or industrial economy and the service economy, has actually moved right to the center of socio-economic importance and growth in a very fast-moving operation. If I may take my own country, the United Kingdom, it's only about 20 years ago, and it was a time when I was Director of Arts worldwide for the British Council 20 years ago, so I was very aware of this concept of the creative industries and the creative economy suddenly came into play for the first time. And what basically happened was that people said, what would happen if we took all these seemingly marginal and recherche kind of subjects like, music, and publishing, and film and television, and all these nice, rather marginal cultural and arts and applied arts concepts, and put them all together as a single economic sector? I wonder what would happen. So that was done about 20 years ago in the UK, late 1990s, all these concepts, and they included advertising, and they included the emerging games industry, films, television, music, the performing arts, the visual arts, design, fashion. They put them together, they aggregated them as an economy. And what we found was that when we did that, we found that the creative economy was the second largest sector in the United Kingdom. And this absolutely amazed everybody, that the arts and applied arts were in this position. And what we realized was that this was the post-industrial experience of the United Kingdom. And particularly in the great cities, and many of my colleagues from UGM have studied in, we've been talking this morning, Leeds, Hull, Nottingham, and we go to Birmingham, Durham, and so on. What happened was those great industrial and manufacturing cities, which had created the 19th and 20th century expansion of the UK, had become post-industrial cities, and in many cases, what they had replaced their industrial and manufacturing base with was the creative economy. And so we find now in the UK, just quickly to dwell on my own country, that the creative economy is worth about US dollars 150 billion. It's a very, very big sector. It employs about 3.2 million people. That's 1 in 10 or 11 of British workers work in the creative economy. Its biggest outputs are in IT and software and games, but that's quickly followed by the films and television industry. It's followed by advertising. It's followed by publishing. And then it's followed by music and, more broadly, arts rather than the applied arts area. Between 2010 and 2017, and I'm not an economist, so I inherit these phrases, the gross value added, GVA I'm told, increased by 53%. The creative industries GVA, gross value added, increased by 53%, whereas the whole economy in that period was increasing by 29%. So it's almost double the rest of the economy in their sectors. And in the last 2 years, the gross value added of the creative industries in the UK has increased by a further 7 or 8%. The creative economy now accounts for 11% of the UK's export value, which is a high figure, considering that, as I say, 20 years ago, people didn't even realise that it mattered much as an economic sector. And since 2010, in terms of export value, it has increased by 123%. So we are talking about an economy of enormous central significance for my country, but for many countries, and increasingly for Indonesia. No, I want to stay there. What is also wonderful about the creative economy is that it doesn't deal with material substance as its means of trade and investment. It deals with the human mind and the human imagination. This is its capital. Its capital is intellectual capital, human capital, imaginative capital, creative capital. Therefore, what the creative economy draws on is the individual human spirit and expressions thereof. It draws on the legacy and identity of nations and cultures. It's not an homogenized, materialized, commodified economy. It is the economy of us. It is the economy of our minds, our imaginations, our hands, our capabilities. And that is an extraordinarily liberating kind of economy, an economy which, as well as providing trade and business for the world, actually provides a nurturing and almost spiritual maturing and recognition of and liberation of all that is best about human individuality and creativity. That's an extraordinary nexus, the nexus of the human imagination and the world's trade. It really depends more than anything else, not on commercial and company aggregated concepts, but on individual enterprise. Even films, television, advertising can be broken down to those individual unique talents that work in collaboration to create a creative concept. So it is an immensely, immensely valuable creative economy. And I suggest that the creative economy, more than any other economy, plays to, for me, the three greatest values in the world today, which, as the Dean has said, undercut the concept of Pancasila as well. The creative economy can play strongly to the concept of equality, equal opportunity for all. We all have creativity, which can be liberated within us individually and which can be translated into something that we can do in terms of work, in terms of expression, in terms of capability. Equality of opportunity. Diversity. I think this is extraordinarily important for Indonesia. The fact I love about Indonesia more than any other, when I talk to my friends in the UK, is that I say that it's a great archipelago. It has 9,000 populated islands. You have however many, 17,000 islands. You have 9,000 islands with people on them. If you visited one of those islands a day, just to quickly run around Indonesia, go to Java one day, I'll go to Sumatra the next day, I'll go to Lombok one day, and then I'll go to all 9,000 islands. Take a long time, but nevertheless worth doing to see Indonesia. How long would it take? It will take you 26 months? No, 26 years 26 years to visit one populated island of your country every day. And what that tells me is that this is not a country whose future entirely lies in the macroeconomy, in the globalized world, in everybody getting a job for big business. The future of your country lies in mobilizing around its extraordinary diversity and distributed talent and distributed legacy and history and communities and cultures. And that's where the creative economy can be the best outlet for people to find their own way through individual enterprise, drawing on their own legacies, histories, backgrounds, local capacities, cuisines, artisanship, languages. One of the most biggest range of diverse languages in the world. The creative economy strikes to the heart of Indonesian diversity and potential. And the creative economy is also enormously strong in the whole area of what I would call inclusion and inclusivity. And to take specific sectors, because it draws on individuality and localism and local cultures, and the difference and the distinctions of identities, it of course draws on gender, and we already know, certainly in my country and in your country, that the creative economy is particularly, it's particularly benign towards gender balance and women, and there are more women than men in Indonesia creating new creative enterprises at the moment, and thank God for that. It plays fully to your different cultures, ethnicities, religions, and pluralism around religion. It is highly responsive to, for you, that difficult area, but that important area, LGBT, and individuality and expression there. It knows no barriers of age. It's a very youthful economy, but old people like me can also play into it. And for us in the British Council, I'll come on to this in a moment, we have particularly found that the creative economy is the economy which recognizes and celebrates all types of ability. And if you need to say disability, diffability, it is the liberator of the abilities of all people, whatever their constraints might be, and every single one of us has constraints. So, these are very simple slides. I don't do complicated slides because people just look at the slides and don't listen to what you're saying. What about Indonesia? Well, as the Dean just said, I think about 7.9%, near 7.5 to 8% of your economy is the creative economy, and it is growing, and I think for the reasons I've just said around diversity, it will continue to grow. You have a president who totally understands the creative economy. Jokowi has said in the past, our future is the creative economy. He himself, of course, comes from the creative economy, used to be president of the Crafts and Artisanship Organization of Indonesia, and of course comes from the area of design, furniture design, and so on. You have a president who gets the creative economy. And when he went to the UK last, he signed an MOU with us around the creative economy. And you have invested in a significant agency, BECRAF, who are doing strong work, I think, to not only raise the capacity of the creative economy in this country, but make Indonesia proud and known in the wider world for its creative economy. And we, the British Council, have worked with BECRAF a lot. One significant thing, for instance, is that earlier this year, we enabled Indonesia to be the guest of honor for the first time ever at the London Book Fair, which is the second largest international publishing event in the world every year. And Indonesia, BECRAF ensured brilliant participation by Indonesia around all areas of creativity in London for 2 weeks, and that was fantastic. You are destined to move from being the 16th largest economy in the world to the World Bank, and others seem to say the 5th, 6th, who knows, 4th, over a shortish period of time. that will depend on the development of the creative economy, I believe, probably more than any other sector of the economy. And it's a very powerful move. Human capital. That is the phrase that President Jokowi has used in saying what his priorities are for his second period of office. And it primarily relates to stimulating the skills of the nation. And the skills of the nation, as well as the educational skills and so on, will actually be liberating the creative and imaginative skills of the nation. And I think it's critically important that as this nation, I believe, needs to try and find over the next few years 50 million new jobs in order to sort of stay level, that many of those jobs need to be stimulated in the creative sector through people who at the moment, maybe undergraduates who don't even realize that their own creativity could be their source of their employment and their employability in the future. So a creative economy needs to work through the stimulation of creative enterprise, the commercialization, perhaps, to use a funny word, of creative expression for creative employment and creative employability. And I think in this country, particular areas are very potent for this. The whole love of and potential development of the music industry in this country, I think, is really, really quite potent. Fashion, design, maybe even cuisine, but really a kind of anthropological approach, an understanding of those myriad of different cultures and ethnicities which are distributed across this archipelago, which can actually be turned into a creative expression. Let me just share with you some of the things we've been doing in the British Council recently with Indonesia. Both nationally and internationally, the creative economy, like all things, depends upon collaboration. So what we've been doing over the last 3 years is running something called the UKID, UK-Indonesia sort of creative festival. It's a picture from it. Now, most countries, when they do cultural work in other countries, like countries in Indonesia, will just simply showcase their own work. They will simply bring the best of what is German or American or Spanish or something, bring it over to Indonesia and show, look, isn't this good? British Council has decided not to do showcasing work from the UK. We have predicated our arts and creative industries program on the development of new collaborations, trying to get as many Indonesian individuals, creative organizations working for the first time with UK individuals and creative organizations in order from collaboration to move towards co-production and to see what kind of new work can be so generated. So we ran this program called the UKID, and it developed over a period of 3 years with great support from all kinds of organizations, including here Beckraft and the Department of Culture. We developed relationships between over 250 UK and Indonesian organizations and individual artists, often working through residencies, which is a great way. We would send Indonesian artists, a few of them, to the UK, and they would work with a British organisation for periods of a month, 2 months, 3 months, and ditto the other way, in order that you can stimulate something new. We had the participation of over 1,900 individual cultural professionals. We created 91 brand new collaborative works of art. We had 11,000 people following all this on social media. And we had public showcases of some of the resulting work, which was witnessed by more than 500,000 people. So you can actually, with a bit of investment and thought, get creative people working internationally together and generating more and more creative economy. Don't try and look at this. It's a London Underground map of what we did with UKID. When I talk about those 250 relationships, I don't mean each one was a one-to-one. That stimulated more things. These are all in organizations, different organizations in your country and mine, And what happens when you start building bilateral relationships is they start networking. It turns into an ecosystem, to use the fancy word. And building a creative ecosystem is absolutely critical. One thing we particularly, I just wanted to raise this because it matters to us a lot. One thing we particularly focused on was these aspects of the creative economy draws out and uses everybody's special abilities. So we actually countered the concept of disability in this country, as we have done in the UK. And I just want to point to 3 things that we did, which we're very proud of under UKID, which really play to disability. We created the first ever dance company in Indonesia of deaf women. It was called Can Do Dance. It was stimulated by a very great company in the UK called Canduco. And as a result of this, there is now a dance company in this country of about 20 to 30 young women, most of whom had never danced before, most of whom are of hearing impediments or are deaf, and who now are performing brilliantly as a company in this country, and who have an economic future through that work. Another thing we did, and here we have it on the right, is that for the first time ever in Indonesia, we had people of disability on the catwalk. And this was at the Jakarta Fashion Week last year. Never before had anyone other than a cliched model conforming to a gender stereotype walked down the catwalk in Indonesia. But people of mental and physical disability came down the catwalk at the Jakarta Fashion Week last year, wearing clothes and garments that had been produced by British and Indonesian designers working together. And the third thing we did is here on the left. We helped stimulate the arts and disability community in this country to create the first ever Arts and Disability Festival, which took place in Jakarta at the time of the Para Games in the Asian Games, and was a phenomenal success at the National Gallery. These are a couple who came out from the UK. And Festival Bebas Batas is now permanently established. The second one will take place in Solo this year, and it will go on year by year. And here is another picture around that. Another area I would stress, we do lots of things, but the other important thing is around the concept of creative hubs and creative cities. Now then, we have worked for many years, particularly with the city of Bandung. I believe Bandung and Yogyakarta are the two best creative cities in this country, but the city of Bandung particularly has gone out of its way, partly through the determination of Pak Ridwan Kamil, to be proactively a creative economy centre, a creative industries city, and that city is now regarded as a world creative city. Now, a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, we were in Surabaya, and with Ibu Risma, the wonderful mayor there, and she said, amongst other things, she said, you know, British Council, Surabaya is also a very creative city. And we want you to help us even develop our creative economy even more by connections with the UK. So we went away, and I'll be honest, we came back to Ibu Risma and we said, you know, Ibu Risma, we don't think Surabaya is a particularly creative city. All cities in the world like to say they are creative cities, and what they mean is they've got lots of creative people in those cities, which is true. There are creative people everywhere working individually. But to actually be a creative city in which the creative economy in your city grows and is stimulated, and there is more and more employment opportunity for people of creativity, you've actually got to make some interventions, you've actually got to have some proactive strategies, you've got to try and help build the creative ecosystem and creative networking. So that is what we are doing in Surabaya. We are linking it with some cities in the UK, particularly the city of Liverpool. And we are trying to stimulate this concept of the creative hub, this concept of creative collaboration within a city to actually build the economy and so on in that way. And we are also working with Bappenas, your Ministry of National Planning, to try and get the whole concept of creative enterprise as well as social enterprise written more into the 5-year national plan, so that there is more and more opportunity for a regularized and liberated environment and regulatory environment to develop, business efficient, creative enterprises and creative systems. Now my time is up. One can talk forever about this, but these are just some of the ideas. I'm going to finish. I'm going to go over my time by just showing a bit of the energy that you can get out of this kind of collaboration, which we have had with UKID. And if my friends can put on a 3-minute video, which is something that we've brought out of UKID. I just want to give you some of the spirit of young Indonesia, some of the spirit of what you can do when you bring collaboration in the creative economy. Thank you.
I don't understand why you wouldn't want to talk to other people. And for me, diversity is an issue about talking to other people.
Kadang-kadang kita inferior dengan karya orang di luar negeri, but actually, we're the same.
We want them to be connected to each other in ways that they weren't before. Because once people know how to work together, they'll find ways of doing it.
UKID Festival is a celebration of collaboration between Indonesian and UK, either artists, creative practitioners, curators, whatever you can name in the arts and creative industry.
The festival itself is a showcase, and it's designed to communicate to wider audiences in Jakarta that actually the UK-Indonesia relationship is one that's building, that has huge potential, and that fantastic things can happen when young people from the UK and Indonesia work together and make things happen together.
Diversity is not just a box that's ticked. It's a way of engaging with people, it's a way of recognizing shared values or kind of humanity between people. It's great to fly 2,000 miles to meet with people, but also it's right there in front of us all, And I think it's really important that we also recognize that, the richness around us.
The heart of this festival, it isn't just UK artists coming and showing their work. The fact that every single one of the performances or the artworks here have been made in collaboration, I think that should start a new trend of how to work internationally. I think it's been great.
Yang saya suka untuk festival UKID ini sebenarnya itu ada 2 entitas yang ketemu, Indonesia sama UK. Itu benar-benar bisa belajar yang baru, bisa nemu referensi yang baru, bisa inspired sama new things. Makanya dengan kita kolaborasi, kita bisa lebih open-minded about our own skill. At the same time, banyak orang yang lebih keren dan jago juga daripada kita, akhirnya bisa memotivasi kita gitu.
Kalau kolaborasi itu ya memang kita harus datang dengan empty cup gitu. Kita masukin gulanya bareng, tehnya barengan. Kalau kita datang udah cupku udah penuh segini, mau apa lagi yang diisi? Jadinya akhirnya ya kita ribut, nggak mungkin ada kolaborasi di situ. Jadi ada pengendalian ego, ruang understandingnya nih harus lumayan besar sih, in order to make that works gitu.
I hope everything that had been introduced or developed through UKID season 2016 and 18 can be sustainable, and we can work with partners to figure out how to make it work.
It's about creativity, it's about imagination, and it's about the future of this country. Thank you very much.